Morning.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and we're skipping ad reads again because I'm bad at them and I haven't pre-recorded them yet. So,
Hey, at least you got ads, man. That's good.
well, I mean,
They're house ads,
discount codes.
discount codes. Okay, well that's all. That's all good. That still works.
So I am joined by the owner of Third Street Barbell, the co-host of 50% Facts podcast, someone who I've been following in the podcast space and the YouTube space for a very long time. One of the great people in our industry, Jim McDonald. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, geez, how do I live up to that introduction? But thank you.
Oh, no problem. I mean, you do more than enough to live up to it in your output. So today we're just going to have a conversation because there's a lot of things that I want to learn about you. I want to learn about, your story, how you got into the content creation business. I would say that you're not to age you because you're a very young man, but the typical content creator is not, we'll say, over 40.
Yeah, that's although that I think it's inching up. I think it's inching up for sure. I think that there are definitely some up and coming 40 somethings, 45-year-olds or so.
Because I think they figured out that 45-year-olds can sell to 45-year-olds and 45-year-olds have the most money.
Have the money. Exactly. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about like your story into content creation. Like how did you've been all over the place at a very high level for a long time.
So like I started out being sort of interested in film and in radio back in the day. And like I wanted to be a film major. That never really came together, but I took film courses, and then my junior college experience was largely around like learning audio. Like there was a radio station on campus. It's not like I was on the air, but I did I literally learned editing audio on physical tape with razor blades and tape and the whole
That's awesome.
9 yards. And then somewhere along the line, I was like, well, I probably should get some kind of degree that I can get a job in.
Fair.
And so I got into marketing. I did a bachelor's degree in marketing and worked in insurance, car insurance marketing for a while. And then I was an editor for an educational consulting company for a while. And then I went back to school, got my master's in business, and then I worked in the HMO industry. And I was kind of always sort of straddling the line between the analytic and the creative. I did a lot of like layout work and stuff in my first job, and it wasn't even part of my job. It was just that there was such a backlog around like print production, when I worked in auto insurance, just like rate cards, right. None of this stuff used to be online. And the product lines that I worked for were smaller revenue producers. And so they didn't grab the resources that they would normally have had. And so that's how I started using a Mac, honestly, because this was like 1987.
When I was born. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And then I just sort of never lost that desire to be involved somehow in an audio or video or film. And I was on, a number of the late 90s, early 2000s bulletin boards, bodybuilding.com, T-Nation. Met a bunch of people in that early T-Nation era that I'm still friends with, all these years later, like 20 or so people that I still have That's some awesome. Kind of contact with. And some of them who became like actual like industry people like Eric Cressy and Tony Gentilcore, some of those folks. And I somehow ended up getting interested in powerlifting, and then ended up at a gym about an hour and 15 minutes away from my house. So I drove over there 3 times a week for some reason, just like I was interested. What kind of pulled me in originally is that I got invited to see an APF state meet that was here in Sacramento. And like I realized watching people lift that people really tell you a story with their face
Oh yeah.
when they're on the platform.
Usually it's my blood pressure's really high. That's the story.
That might have something to do with it, yeah. But just the intensity in their eyes, and you can see all the card file of emotions that they're running through as they're getting up there. And I'd always had cameras. I took a lot of pictures, all the way through family and stuff. A lot of video that still is sitting here in tapes that need to be transferred to more up to date mediums. But I had a camera, and so I thought, well, maybe if I get involved in something, it might be fun to start shooting stuff and just see what I can do with it. This was pre YouTube, even. We were when I would shoot stuff, it ended up going up on, like, I don't know, put file or something like that, where people could just download the file and they weren't streaming it. And it felt like a kind of powerful thing, honestly. And then uh, and then I ended up being involved in super training here in Sacramento, and started sort of shooting stuff in earnest. And then strangely, we had two documentaries filming in the gym some of the time in that 2006 2007 era, Power Unlimited and Bigger Stronger Faster. And I didn't shoot anything for Power Unlimited. I don't think. I don't think there's anything of mine in there, but there is a little bit in Bigger Stronger Faster. And that just kind of started this, like, well, how can we, as YouTube is kind of starting to pop off, how can we leverage that into a platform, to really bring attention to, like, what we're doing, and then just powerlifting in general. And did that for quite a while, and like the various times of we producing not necessarily a video a day, but 3 or 4 a week.
Pretty close. I mean, I remember in the late 2000s, like, I couldn't open YouTube without seeing a new super training video.
Yeah.
And at the time I didn't really clue in, but now that I know how much work goes into making a YouTube video, especially one of like actual quality.
Yeah.
And you look back at the edits that you guys used to use and things like that, you were far ahead of your time in terms of, we'll call it cinematography on YouTube. That's a lot of time spending creating content.
It was, yeah, for sure. And I had a philosophy I kind of borrowed from Martin Scorsese, and that's like, keep the camera moving if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And most stuff still right now is shot locked off on a tripod,
right?
And most of what we see,
all my YouTube video is too, because I don't have anyone with me.
Right.
The closest, sorry to interrupt, but the closest I get is like, I have a DJI Osmo, so it'll like follow my face.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of an important part of it. It just doesn't, I was shooting, like, just with one camera most of the time, sometimes more than one, but I would, like, how would I put this? Like, integrate the B-roll into the A-roll.
Mm-hmm.
I would like shoot around. This is what the weights look like. This is where their feet are positioned, stuff like that. And then somewhere along the line, I realized that the software I was using could do voiceover. So I don't know this for sure, because there's only so much capability of doing research around it. But I think I may have been the first person to put like instructional powerlifting content with voiceover on YouTube.
I can't think off the top of my head. I can't think of anyone else who did that.
I can't think of it. I can't think of anyone either. And I think that came really from the desire to do that came from the experience of being involved in those documentaries. Although, like, that came before those were ever finished or released. So,
yeah, the thing that always struck me about yourself and other content creators was, there's so many trends and so many changes to what people are finding popular. How have you managed to kind of stay on top of that and keep evolving over the years? Because I mean, at first it was YouTube and
Yeah.
like just sharing training videos. Then you made it more cinematic. Then it was podcasting became huge.
Yeah.
And it was almost like you were ahead of the curve every time.
I think just ahead of the curve, particularly with the podcasting, because we started in 13 and podcasts really blew up in 14.
Mm-hmm.
I I'd wanted to do something that wasn't the straight powerlifting content for a long time. I was just trying to figure out what that was going to be. And in fact, Mike Farr, Silent Mike, and I and a couple of other guys were doing like a healthy low carb cooking series for a while. That was, I mean, I think it still looks cool, to be honest with you. Like it was, I think it was good. I think it was really good. It was just hard.
Right.
Like everything about editing video for me is kind of the opposite of editing text. Like I can edit text and everything's just obvious to me.
Right.
With video, it was more of a trial and error situation
Okay.
to get what I was looking for, and it would just take me forever. It would, if I could have handed it off to somebody who really knew what they were doing, it probably would have lasted. But I burnt out on it, and so I thought, well, okay, well, what else can I do? And I had been thinking about podcasting for a while. I listened to my first podcast. The one that I ever listened to was actually the showrunner and director's commentary from the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
That is so eclectic.
Ron Moore is the guy who created that reboot, and he was very ahead of the curve because kind of nobody was doing it at the time. Basically, it was like the DVD commentary, but it was episode by episode, and you could just download it.
Okay.
And it was
Cool.
long before it was like long before the DVDs would come out. It was almost contemporaneous to the release of the episodes. It was sometimes in the same week. So you watched it once and then you could go back and watch it again with the commentary if you wanted to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you could sync it up. And you downloaded it to your computer and then you downloaded it to your iPod. And
right, because there was no streaming back then.
There was no streaming really yet. Yeah. And anyway, though, I wanted to do that, and I talked to Mike about it. I was like, "What do you think?" And he said, "Oh yeah, totally." He was always down for whatever would that might catch a trend. Mm-hmm. And then between the two of us, we got Mark involved, and we recorded the first few episodes, and I had so much technical problem. It was like, because we were trying to do guests every week, which was challenging back then. And
especially if you're doing in person.
Yeah. In person is not that hard, but
to get them there on location.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. And we started recording it in the back room of, actually it's in the same place that our podcast set is now, in the same building.
Really?
Yeah. We were inside of a gym called Midtown Strength and Conditioning.
Okay.
Which lasted from like 07 or 08 to about 2019. And that it kind of crashed and burned at the end. And a bunch of people that we knew from there said, "Hey, if you guys are thinking about starting a gym, you could probably lease this building." And so we did.
It's serendipitous.
Yeah. And oh my God, I could go on and on about what a mess that back room was when we got the place. It was like there were rats in the walls and the ceiling. We had to tear everything out, and we like did closed cell foam insulation anywhere, like spray super toxic. Why we ever did that? I don't know. Everyone was wearing respirators and stuff. It was a nightmare. Anyway, we started the podcast, and it within a few weeks like started to take off, and it turned into kind of something I would not have imagined. Like the YouTube stuff did okay, but okay was like maybe 1,500 downloads on a video, or views on a video, and this just like it was at the peak, it was like 6 million downloads uh, a year,
Holy
plus
shit.
YouTube. Yeah, plus YouTube.
I would kill for those numbers.
Yeah, well, you know what? Everybody would now. The thing about the podcasting landscape now is it's kind of a lot like television, where shows that used to get canceled because they only got 20 million viewers, like there's no show now that's getting 20 million viewers
Right.
on a consistent basis.
I always found for me, I've been someone who always communicates better in long form, like
Yeah,
whether it be just a face-to-face conversation or teaching a class. I've always been very adept at communicating things in nuance because I much prefer to speak in nuance because in my opinion, nothing's black or white. And in the
yeah,
education space and fitness, in my opinion, there's just too much black and white and not enough context. And so I've been late to adopt YouTube simply by virtue of friction. I'm just like, hey, there's just so much friction to get this thing off the ground because I can't
mm,
just put my camera down and film myself.
yeah,
It has to be edited. And then as well on the same breath, you have guys like Sam Sulek who got famous just literally putting his iPhone on a tripod and talking to it.
right.
So where do you see maybe some of the pitfalls that people fall into when they're trying to get into these fields? Let's stick to YouTube first. So when people are thinking about starting channels, which I think everyone is thinking about starting channels,
Yeah.
what are some things that you think are holding them back that shouldn't?
I think that probably kind of one of the biggest problems right now in just content creation in the fitness space is people taking really kind of arch positions on things and making that their whole persona.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
you know, seed oils and, just fear appeals, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because everyone is doing it, nobody stands out from it, unless there's somebody that came into it with a little bit of a following. It's
Fair.
hard to launch off of anything, but it's particularly hard to launch off of things that don't feel authentic, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think that authenticity is totally the key,
Mm-hmm.
period. And if you can't be authentic on camera or on mic, it doesn't work very well. Um, and
I,
you have to have some chemistry with your audience too.
well, that kind of falls into one of the things that I feel is probably quite pervasive these days is I don't think a lot of people know what is authentic to them.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people don't actually know who they're trying to talk to.
yeah. I think that's yeah. I would agree with that exactly. Yeah.
How did you start to kind of dial that in when you started?
Well, the audience for the YouTube stuff was very clearly hardcore multiply powerlifters,
Right.
and the age range was, in terms of target, like 25 to 45. When we moved to the podcast space, we needed to really broaden that out as much as possible and take it down, to even 18
Mm-hmm.
and up, and to make it not be about just what we were doing in the gym.
Right.
We needed to bring in people who had broader experience. We were able to, we had Stone Cold on early, which is crazy, but
Yeah.
the appeal of that is so much broader than anything we could say just about the world of powerlifting.
So you
And
leverage the guest a lot.
we leveraged the guests a lot for sure, and the conversation that we had was just not specific to stuff going on in the gym. A lot of the time, it's like, stuff happens in our lives and interactions that we had, and
Mm-hmm.
and things we wanted to do and things we had done, whatever. Just like regular life stuff that people can, a sort of broader range of people can vibe
Let me ask you this. So
with.
I'm a beginner. I'm trying to launch, let's say I launch a coaching business. I think YouTube would be a viable option to communicate in a more long form, try to get people to get to know me a little bit better, which I think honestly is the best way to use YouTube is just put yourself out there and see who resonates.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to do 2 videos a week and make them reasonably good, what sort of time commitment am I making to that? And I'm going to do all the editing.
Typically they say that editing takes 2 to 4 times the amount of time it takes to record.
Oof.
Yeah. And it just depends on like how much editing you feel like you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the things that cuts it down, and I think that this is one of the things that cuts both ways. A lot of people are using AI now
Mm-hmm.
to drop in B-roll stuff like photographs and
Yeah.
video and stuff that key off of things that they say in their audio. Sometimes that's great and it works great. Sometimes the AI doesn't understand and you get images that don't make a lot of sense. I use some online software that I can feed the stuff in, and then it spits out a bunch of social clips. I've tried doing it for myself before,
Mm-hmm.
getting something down to a minute or 45 seconds or whatever, or even 2 minutes. And it's just, I get so hung up in making it as concise as possible, but not making it look like the video jumps around. And so
Right.
that's, it's an enormous time saver to use something else to do that. But I get like an AI clip. There's like, oh, try this one. And it starts off with a narrator voice that is not my voice and or the voice of anybody on the show, and then it goes into a bunch of images, and then you get to the clip. It's like, well, that I don't want that. I don't think that that's the way to go. You know. So anyway, though, I mean, AI it can cut down on this some, and
Mm-hmm.
like with the video version of 50%. I will get a version that cuts between speakers without
Right.
having to do it manually. I used to have to do that. This 50% and the Powercast at its peak were 3 camera shows, and so I was building that in the background after we would record. I'd have to sit down, load all the footage in, and then switch between them, and just like trying to make it look as professional and as smooth as possible or whatever. And then somewhere along the line, they developed the ATEM Mini, which is just a small switcher, and you
Mm-hmm.
can have somebody sit there and actually just switch between cameras. And when we started using that, my son, my older son or younger son, came in and was doing that for us quite a bit for more than a year or so. And then we started using Sebastian, who is our sort of media guy for 3SB. That's not the only thing he does, but it's a big part of what he does. And that made it easier as well. I think I've wandered off the point of your question, but
Well, no, I'm just thinking like in terms of time. So if it takes me, let's say, an hour to film something, I'm going to be spending at least 4 hours editing it,
or yeah, depending.
depending on what it is. Like if I have B-roll and if I have all this other stuff and I want to
Yeah.
make it, quite cinematic, I'm just thinking if I'm a young coach and I have to commit, let's say 20 hours a week to editing to try and get a YouTube channel off the ground, that seems like a big undertaking. I want to ask you, like, how often are you outsourcing editing?
Me personally, not much. Not much at all. In fact, I have seldom done that. I have been the person that stuff was outsourced to in the past, more audio than video.
Mm,
But no, I haven't. I've sort of done it all myself for the most part. Not That's not true of the media that comes out of the gym. That's Sebastian who does all that stuff. And the editing style for social media is different than what I have done.
right.
It is so the tempo is really different,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of technique stuff that I just like. I'm not at this point. I'm not going to learn. I'm gonna hand off.
Yeah. For me, whenever I look at a project, I look at, okay, what's the biggest friction point that's going to be there for me personally?
Yeah.
For me, it's time. Okay, cool. I don't have the time to learn to edit, and I don't have the time to actually do the editing. So what if I could, and this is what I did, is I found someone who I could kind of coach into the style that I wanted.
Yeah.
And then I just outsourced it to him. And that's allowed me to just, hey, I'm just going to film all this shit and you put it together however you want to. And it's to the point where I don't even have to double check his work.
Oh, that's great.
And it's been a game changer for my social media and for the YouTube, because I actually just, I follow, even though social media is a much different editing style, a lot of the content that I put out is just like me talking to the camera,
Yeah.
because that's the brand that I want to create. So he'll just do those clips at the times where I identify. I'm like, yeah, I want a clip of this. I want a clip of this. I want a clip of this. And then he'll just clip that out of the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my social media posts are just clips from my YouTube video. And then I use them both to cross pollinate each other.
Yeah.
Which has worked to some degree, but it's not what I would call optimal, because it's optimized neither for YouTube nor for Instagram.
Right.
So what you're telling me is like best practices, you make content for each separate platform.
I think that's true. Yeah. Unless
Okay.
you're making a YouTube short, which is pretty much just social media, just the minute limit stuff.
What are your favorite softwares, or what softwares do you think every person who wants to edit their own videos needs to have?
I think it's more about capabilities than like brand, but
Okay.
I edit audio in Logic from Apple, and then I edit video in Final Cut Pro, which is also from Apple. But a lot of folks use the Adobe products in that for those things, and they're fine. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to pay for them on a subscription basis. The stuff that I have from Apple, I pay for it once, and then and they keep updating it, and I don't have to keep paying for it. That's a big part of it. The only thing I pay for Adobe is just Photoshop, and I use that all the time, just like thumbnails and stuff like that. Um, but
Okay.
those things they work fine for me, and I know them. They
Yeah.
don't necessarily always have the most capability, because like I think that because of the subscription model, Adobe makes more money, and so they put more money into that. Whereas Apple, it's a little bit more of an accommodation for getting people to buy the computers. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can do this with it.
When one of the things that I love about, honestly, that I love about social media, I think a lot of people shit on social media, and when in fact, and it's funny, they shit on social media, yet all of the money they make is because they have large social media followings,
Yeah,
which I find hilarious. But one of the benefits that I see with social media is connecting, being
yeah,
able
yeah,
to actually create meaningful relationships that have no proximity gap, right? Like you and I never would have like been able to connect without social media.
for sure.
There's so many friends that I have, so many close people that I associate with. Dude, I did a podcast with Joey Satmari. Like you know him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Dude, Joey and I did a podcast a week and a half ago. I've talked to that guy every day.
yeah.
And what has been like the biggest opportunity for you with regards to connection? Like maybe that's actually the wrong way to ask it. How have you used social media, YouTube, uh, podcasting to better connect with people?
Well, part of the drive behind doing the podcast, the first podcast, was that I thought that people would engage better if they got to know the, the people involved on a
Mm,
deeper level.
yeah.
And if you're doing an hour plus podcast, uh, especially if it's a conversational, not even someone, not so much with the interview, but sometimes like the interviewer's point of view comes through. But if you're doing a conversation, a talk podcast, well, it's hard to avoid like being yourself, or
Yeah,
some
that's true.
public version of yourself. And I think that's I felt like that was critical, and I was right that
Oh
it
yeah.
would. And you're talking about like longer form YouTube. That's the only way that people get a sense of who you are. And now with social media, some folks are getting very good at just talking to the camera without edits,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know how many takes they made. But we're talking about editing. Like, one of the things you can do to cut down on the amount of time editing is to get it right the first time. If
Oh
you're
yeah.
and which is hard to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even audio stuff, a lot of the time I will, if I have to record an intro or something that's separate, or I used to do intros to all the Powercast episodes, both audio and video, and they were not necessarily recorded the same. I didn't necessarily take the video audio and make it the
Right.
audio. I think I did eventually, but I would have so many takes on those suckers.
Well, dude,
It
that's why I
was,
stopped doing ad reads. Because I'm just
yeah,
like, fuck this. I'm not. Yeah, you can use my code here, and you can use my code here, and blah blah blah. Um, Even on the YouTube stuff that I do, I'm like, hey, I'm Paul O'Need, head strength coach, and master athletic performance, lead educator, coach corner you. Today we're going to talk about blank. That's it.
yeah.
I don't do anything special.
Yeah, just as streamlined as possible.
Yeah,
And then in terms of just on personal connections, uh, I like yesterday was a great day in this regard, because I got three different messages from three different guys that I have never met in person,
I
who
love
are
that.
good guys, and one of them I'd actually not even talked to directly before, and they all said the nicest shit to me. And like, it kind of made my day
Yeah,
and like, there was probably, I don't know, there was maybe one the day before, so I have four within 48 hours, and that some of them are people that don't have any idea of my background, and other people who do, um, and it helps overcome some of that sort of loneliness, that factor that everybody talks about these days, where you're connecting with people that you would love to connect to in person, but the reality is that you live in different places,
yeah.
and you just have to cope with the tools that are available.
That actually brings us back to what you said earlier about, the best way to be successful in the online space is to have authenticity.
Yeah,
It's something that I've thought about a lot because so I worked with a company. I guess this was almost 2 years ago now. It was when we first moved to Houston for the winter. I was like, I'm going to be in a new place. I need some help with my social media. I'm going to hire a company to do it.
yeah,
And for all intents and purposes, the product that they put out was fantastic. But one of the things that they wanted me to do was to kind of have a persona, to like be almost like a volume turned up version of myself. And for anyone who knows me, I'm probably the flattest person you'll ever meet. Like, I never get too up, never get too down. I talk
mm-hmm.
very matter of fact. So that was really hard for me. And what I found was when I got compliments or when I got feedback about the work that I was doing, it was really empty because I knew it wasn't me.
Mm,
So for you to say, hey, like, I'm showing up as who I am, whether it be on camera, off camera, on a podcast, audio versus video, you're showing up as yourself and you get that compliment or you get that validation, it actually means something to you because it's you.
yeah, yeah, I think that's true.
I think a lot of the loneliness or the disconnect, and you see this a lot with younger content creators, where they'll post super frequently for a long time and then take a gap and come back and say, "Hey, yeah, my mental health took a shit." It's like, yeah, because no one knows who the fuck you are, and
Yeah,
you're only getting validation on someone who isn't you.
yeah.
I like, is that something that maybe how would you coach someone to avoid that pitfall?
I think you just don't stop, and if you're going through difficult things, you figure out ways to talk about it that help you, that could potentially help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a way like that you're looking for sympathy or some kind of clout out of it or whatever, but just being honest about the challenges you're facing.
So I
I
shouldn't cry on camera.
Yeah, well, no, I think you can absolutely cry on camera. Just don't cry on camera in such a way that it looks like you were trying to cry on camera. You know what I mean? Like, if the emotion takes you, it takes you. That's that,
Yeah.
and people connect with that it just bypasses all their logic circuits and goes straight to their heart, you know.
Yeah.
And it just actually jumping back to podcasting for a minute, like most of us listen to podcasts with earbuds or headphones or something like that. It's going straight into our brains. It's a
Right.
totally different experience than listening to someone speak in person, and it bypasses some of our guard, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so people feel more connected to you. This is slightly off topic, but not
That's
entirely.
okay. Yeah, far away.
Back back when Bigger, Stronger, Faster was being made, they went through a number of editors trying to come up with somebody who could give them what they were looking for, and they ended up hiring this guy who was like, basically, I think he started off as maybe an intern or an assistant or something like that, and he ended up being the person who finished the film. And we went to the premiere in Hollywood, and there was an after party, and this guy comes up to me in the after party, and he's calling me by, bless you.
So I tried to mute my mic at the same time. I was like, oh.
Lucky it's not me. I just, these days I'm sneezing like 5 or 6 times in a row, so it's a big edit potentially there. He comes up to me. He's calling me by the nickname that everyone called me back then, and it was, he'd had a little bit to drink, but there was it was he had such a strong parasocial connection to me from watching footage that I was in.
Yeah.
Like interview footage and other footage that I was in. And he just like, it was like he knew me and I didn't know him at all. And that was my first experience. That was all pre-podcast. And then eventually, you know, the podcast was successful enough that like Mike and I got recognized on the street in Manhattan.
That's so cool.
I got recognized in town at Niagara Falls.
Canada or New York?
Canada.
Okay, that's big.
As somebody called out to me like across a parking lot. I was like, what the hell is happening?
Got good vision.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it was strange. It was like on a daily basis, not knowing exactly how to cope with that level of exposure. And I think you know, I was very much myself. I think we used to say that we were about 110% when we were doing the show. It was elevated, not tremendously, but just enough so that there's a little bit more character come through. And I have people tell me all the time, "Oh, you always came off as the adult in the room." It's like, well, I was.
Yeah, you were the adult in the room.
I was the adult in the room. And I couldn't be really anything else. And in terms of authenticity, I think that the last year of that show was the hardest for me after Mike left, and Mark's ideas about where he wanted to go with content and opinions and stuff like that started to be abrasive to me. And so it was difficult on the show to just put on that was okay. That was like the most acting I've ever done in any venue.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because I started thinking about all this like authenticity stuff from more of a top-down approach, because ultimately my goal with building an audience is to add value. And I want to add value to people who actually want it and resonate with me as a person. And after my surgery, I did 3 or 4 videos that were literally just filmed my camera in front of me in my hospital bed in my office. So there was like no cuts, nothing. I had a bit of a script, but it was more like an outline for me to remember my talking points. I cried a couple times on that, obviously, because of what I was going through. And the response from that was just so overwhelmingly positive, because I think it was the first time where I was actually myself on a YouTube video or in a reel or whatever it was. And when I'm thinking about coaching, the industry of coaching, a lot of the people that are content creators use it as a backdrop or a platform to sell coaching.
Yeah.
Do you really want to sell coaching to somebody who doesn't know who you are or believes you to be somebody else? I wouldn't, because as soon as they come in the door and realize who you actually are, the chances of that resonating with them are probably pretty low. You're going to have a low lifetime value of that customer, and they're going to leave. So I've always sided on the authenticity, and then that experience with myself really, really sold it to me that you have to be who you are at the end of the day. When you're obviously podcasting, YouTube, it can be quite a lucrative endeavor if you are able to grow it to that upper echelon, 50K followers, 100K followers, that sort of thing. What might be some advice that you would have for people on how to, we'll call it, ethically monetize your content? Because there's people who just pedal shit, and then there's people who kind of organically work it in.
I think you shouldn't try to sell anything that you wouldn't use yourself. I think that's, and not, I mean, that you wouldn't buy yourself, I guess is maybe the better way to say it. If you wouldn't buy it, why would you expect anybody else to buy it? I mean, oftentimes you get it for free,
Right.
and you have the experience of using it, but you don't. And if you don't have a good experience of using it, you shouldn't do it, clearly. But you should be able to say, "Oh, I would pay for this," and I understand why somebody else would pay for this. And I've several years ago, there was a company that, like a supplement company, that wanted us to do some stuff with them, and that everyone was doing at the time, and everyone is still doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent their product, and it was like, not only would I not pay for this, but I don't even want to use it. Like, it doesn't really have the science backing that I would be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You would be better off just eating a whole diet. Not just, I mean, it doesn't really add anything to if your diet is on point. You're not getting anything more out of it, and you're just throwing money at it.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, just like I just let the communication die. Said, thanks for that, but I didn't even say we're not interested. I just let it go.
Just so everyone knows, I actually did pay for barefoot shoes, and I paid for TC Nutrition and still do. And I am the owner of Coach's Corner University. So
there you go.
I think okay, what about this? Let's talk motivations for starting, because I think this is a big one. If you are getting into YouTubing, podcasting with the purpose of making money versus getting into YouTube and podcasting for the purpose of sharing knowledge and information and hoping that you make money in the end. Did you guys get into YouTube and social media strictly for the financial gain, or did you just want to put out more information?
The YouTube part was just it was recognition, a lot of it, and it wasn't necessarily for me. It wasn't necessarily monetizing it, because there wasn't any money involved at all at the time. It was a creative outlet. Then I'll just be totally honest that when Bigger, Stronger, Faster came around, it was like, how do we capitalize on this? Because this is going to be a movie in theaters, and this is one of the central characters in that movie. And how do we reach that audience? How do we reach an audience, like, period?
Mm-hmm.
But the content was still pretty narrow. But it was the thought that was like, okay, well, here's this thing, and it shows up in this movie. We want more people to know about it, and then eventually it could be something.
But it sounds like to me that, as you mentioned, until the end, the content that you were putting out to capitalize on it was still authentic.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was absolutely. Then the podcast didn't necessarily start thinking that there would be money involved, other than just, like house ads, self-promotion,
brand deals.
But fairly early on, there were a couple of little things that we were getting a little bit of cash on. And then people approach you approach them. There are at the time, at least, there were services that connected people. It's a lot of work to sell those things, get them set up, negotiate copy. Mike and I had ads, had host read ads in the first couple of years of 50%. And we're in like conference calls for these startups, and like the CEO is on the call, for heaven's sakes. And um, if you don't absolutely dead love the product, it comes through.
Mm,
Or if you have any criticism of it, they're not at the stage of their capitalism that they're willing to listen to
fair enough.
to that. And it, yeah. And eventually it's like, this is so much of a hassle. Like I'm having to schedule multiple conference calls a week just to talk about what the advertising is. Just give me the freaking copy and I'll read it. I'm not,
Yeah,
we're not idiots here. We know how to produce, host read ads. We know how to do that. We've been doing it for years. And they want to spoon feed you stuff you don't need to eat, I guess.
that's fair. Talk to me about the gym. So Third Street Barbell, obviously, how long has the gym been open now?
We opened actually 5 years ago, November, I think November third or fourth or whatever, 2020, which is just a wonderful time to open a gym.
Yeah, yeah,
Deep COVID, deep pre-vaccine COVID. Uh, it was challenging, and it still is, in a lot of ways, because we opened a powerlifting gym in downtown Sacramento, which did not have anything like that before. Um, Super Training had been in that building, but that was it was such a different model. People don't understand that Super Training wasn't so much a gym as it was like a group training exercise.
it was like a room in the back of a gym, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was room to the side of a gym. Yeah, it was like,
Kind, kind of like, kind of like Jesse's gym, where Jesse's gym was in the back of a CrossFit gym, wasn't it?
yeah, kind of like that. This was it was like a functional training, sort of CrossFit knockoff that had a bunch of different trainers with a bunch of different group clientele in it. And then the owners also had training classes, and there's just sometimes just an absolute ton of people in that building. And Super Training was really just 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, and that's all you could do.
I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, that's all you could do. It was the same. Basically, it's the same of what we pay for 24, where we charge for 24-hour access now, and that was 20 years ago or 15 years ago, because the price of gym membership is pretty static. Like it's
Yeah,
difficult to raise prices on gym membership. Um, yeah, that's all it was. It was essentially like a team training together. So yeah,
that's wild. I didn't know that. Um, so how have you, I mean, better, more accurate, how have you leveraged the content side with growing the gym? Or has that been a process for you?
it really hasn't been so much of a process on YouTube. It's been more social media, and
Mm,
it's really kicked off now. In the past couple of years, Sebastian has been doing that stuff, and he has really grown. He was somebody that we identified as potential. He's had the interest and potentially had the talent to do this, and he has gone from zero to way past 60 in the last little bit here. We had been working with one marketing agency that didn't do a whole lot around around content,
mm.
for us. They provided suggestions and stuff, and then eventually it became just all internally generated. And we ended that contract, and we've actually just starting up with a new, advertising marketing firm, and they're like, your content is great, it's really good, it's just the issue of getting it more out there to more targeted audiences. Um, and so from that perspective, and then early on, Mike was making a lot of YouTube videos. He had a much bigger channel than I ever did. Like I think mine topped out at like 42 or 43,000, and he had 100,000 more than
Oh, wow.
that. And he had a relationship with Bart Kwan, and
Hmm.
Bart came in and did like a gym tour and stuff with us fairly early, and we had Alan Thrall in because he's just in town too.
So leveraging relationships.
Leveraging relationships. Yeah, like it is. I think it still goes on, but back then, it even well before that, even is the like a cooperative, whatever they're calling it now, like a co-op video with was a collab video with
Yeah,
somebody.
collabs.
It had a lot of power. I think they have less power now in some ways. You don't always grab somebody else's audience as
Not as well. No.
like I had kind of the most popular picture that I've had on Instagram lately was one I took with John Hack
Mm.
recently, and he reposted it, and when he reposted it is like it was big. It's like the biggest thing in a long time. When you look at the statistic, it's like 95% of people who are non-followers, and I picked up 4 followers out of it. It's very difficult to get that kind of that to grow audience off of a collaboration anymore.
When you opened the gym, was it purely because, hey, I just want a place to train the way I want to train, or was it, hey, I need to make this a viable business and grow it and scale it?
I think it was both. I think that we thought it would be easier than it's been, for sure. Everything's
Okay.
always, you always kind of convince yourself that things are going to be easier than they are.
I need to highlight this because if you're telling me that two dudes with a combined 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, probably close to that on Instagram, are finding making a gym profitable challenging in a highly population dense area, people underestimate how hard gym ownership is.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. It can be really, really hard, and just making the profitability work out. And I mean, I listen to and read some of the sort of gym business guru folks, and some of the ideas that they have are things that would work for us, and some of them are just really not. And I don't know how they work for anybody, honestly. It's just challenging. It's just
What,
challenging.
what has been like the most memorable experience for you, either podcasting or YouTube?
Um, a couple of them. I would say one of them was the episode that we did with Stone Cold in person. I just realized my heater was still running. I hope that wasn't killing
No,
the
no, I'm
audio.
not distracted.
Okay. He gave me shit the entire time. Like, we're sitting there with 3 other guys, and but he and I are the closest in age,
Right.
and he's just giving me shit the entire time. And like, I'm a much bigger fan of him in person than I ever was him in wrestling. I just was not that big a wrestling fan, but
Right.
he is super cool, like just a super cool dude. So that was probably the biggest. The other two are kind of neck and neck with each other. Uh, we had CT Fletcher on in person,
Okay.
and well, one time, actually twice, but the first time he has a very complicated relationship with his father, who was a
Mm.
minister, and and sometimes abusive, and it's a difficult conversation. He can't be anybody other than himself when he's
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah, he's just very plain spoken about everything, and he uh, he was talking about how his brother, I mean, his father was a preacher, and I said, kind of an evangelist. I was like, dude, you're an evangelist. You're preaching right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just preaching a different message. And like the look on his face when he realized, oh wait, maybe I'm my dad. I'm
Oh,
just
Jesus.
it's just different, and
Yeah.
I'm not the same person as him, but like I have some of the same characteristics, and I'm coming across the same way. That one was big. And then the time that we had Janae Kroc on after the outing,
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
that I mean, that ended up in her documentary in Transformer. There's like a minute or so of video from that podcast in there. and that was pretty meaningful. And like, it's not that I hadn't known Matt, and
Right.
it's not that I hadn't known that more about how he was feeling about himself, and then eventually how she was feeling about herself. It's not that I didn't know those things. It was just the combination of like shock and hurt and
Yeah.
great and grace.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have that kind of grace if it was me.
Oh, me neither. I remember actually, I was at a meet, an SPF meet in Tampa, Florida. It was my second meet ever. And at this point, I was already a college strength and conditioning coach, been following Elite FTS forever.
Yeah.
And I show up and Matt Kroc is at the meet. And it was the first, like I have goosebumps talking about it because it was the first like larger than life human, both literally and figuratively, that I had ever met. And to see that transformation and how it was handled publicly, even though I didn't have a personal relationship with this individual, like I was hurt by it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, brutal. Um, where do you see the podcasting YouTube space evolving into? Because obviously it's growing at such a fast rate. Everyone and their mom has a podcast and a YouTube channel.
I wish I had a really good answer to that question. I don't know exactly where it's going from here. I think that uh, I struggle with this, knowing like what kind of content to put together, and part of where I am now. Mike's been away since June, and I don't have anybody to just kind of sit down and BS with. And this is like the current thing that's happening in the world, or in the lifting world, or CrossFit or whatever. It's more difficult. Like this week, I took this week off because I didn't have a guest primed up, and I'm not gonna reach out to some. I don't know. You get a lot of pitches of
Oh yeah.
guests, and I'm not gonna pick up one of those that I don't think will work
Mm-hmm.
just so that I can fill a hole.
Right.
Um, I think that it goes back to what we're talking about in terms of authenticity. I think that what's going to survive is the authentic creators that develop a smaller than you would expect, but very, very loyal audience.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be harder and harder to do the broad based um, audience with huge audience. And I think it's just going to be harder going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. Whenever I talk to young coaches who are, starting to build their platforms, I always say, listen, if you want to make really good money in this industry, let's say let's say your average price point per client is $300, which is
Yeah.
pretty reasonable for online coaching. You don't need to work with very many people to make really good money.
Yeah.
So for you to say, I need to get to 10,000 followers, or I need to get to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, I can't use this excuse now because I have reached that 10,000 follower mark. But even when I was at 8, 7, because my followers were loyal and they knew who I was, resonated with my message, I never had a problem earning money, which is one of the reasons why I never put, the true quote unquote effort into building my social media channel, because I didn't feel that I needed to, due to the engagement of the people that were already following me. Where I see the challenge, like the pushback that I would have on you within that model of, more niche audience, smaller amount of followers kind of thing, the visibility of your posts to your followers is going down.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to have to pull from a larger audience to get that smaller audience. So there is a give and take there. It's super challenging to navigate. And I empathize with those people who are just starting now.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to start right now. It has been the past few years, and you see a lot of people who were peaked out in like 2016, 2017, 2018, who just don't have the traction anymore. And part of it is, the algorithms have changed, and it would be nice. Well, I think that Threads doesn't have the same kind of algorithm as some of the other social media platforms, and so I'm seeing a lot more stuff that I don't follow, but I'm actually interested in. And they're not all big creators, or a lot of small creators, and people who just happen to have an account and a point of view.
Yeah.
I think I have really leaned in on there and just following anybody who doesn't have horrific political opinions and goes to a gym. And occasionally posts workout videos, or progress videos, or pictures, or whatever. Just following those people in terms of trying to like train the algorithm to show me what I'm interested in.
Interesting. What's if you had a billboard on the side of the highway that everyone could read as they drove by, what would it be?
Oh goodness. Make my gym profitable.
Fair enough.
I think that's what a lot of people would say. I don't know. If on a personal level, I don't know. It's more like what would be on my tombstone. And it's like, yeah, well, he tried really hard. and that would be true. I for the most part have tried really hard.
That's interesting, dude. I've really appreciated having you on. There's one final question I have for you.
Sure.
If there's one person that you would like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is you have to help me get them on.
Oh, have you had Jacob Ross on?
I haven't. No.
That would be he's the one. He would be the top of the list. I love that guy. I don't know anybody who doesn't love that guy. He is an incredibly interesting guy. Super, super, super good trainer. And he is doing a lot of nonprofit work right now.
Oh, okay.
He was Luol Deng's trainer, like his personal travel with him trainer.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. And now he is the strength and conditioning guy for the Ugandan national basketball team.
That's so cool. I would definitely. I played high school basketball against Luol Deng's cousin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And he's doing a lot of work to try to raise the profile of the guys that end up on that team in terms of like NBA scouts. And they're, some of them are getting drafted, and they did. I mean, they were in the Olympics for I think the first time in a long time, or maybe ever. And he just a super passionate, super cool guy.
Love that. Jim, thank you so much for joining me today, man. Where can people find you?
I am at the Jim McD on all the social media. TheJimMCD.
Love it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.